I want to thank everyone for inviting me, IDA, the conference organizer. It's a pleasure to be here in Singapore. Information security in the cloud is not a 20-minute speech. It's a persistent commitment. And I was asked to do a little bit of a different talk, which is, it's about actually how the information security industry itself is going to be changed by cloud and the things that we need to do. So I think it's very relevant for where I'm at right now in the country I'm at, and it's relevant, I think, in a lot of different countries. But if you think about a lot of times when we are trying to introduce new technology, or we're going to a new product, a new level of storage, or you think of a lot of different industries, and you will see at that certain point in time, maybe there is a country or there's a company that has an inherent advantage. A country that certainly has a lot of natural resources, they're going to have an advantage when it comes to producing oil or refining it or whatever else may be needed. But when you think about the things that technology consumerization are providing, and this ubiquity of technology that, as a consequence, is bringing a lot of different innovations. It is though every country, every company is back at the same place at the starting line. And to get to the next generation of technology, we all have equal opportunity to be disruptive. I firmly believe that 5 of the largest technology companies in 2020 do not exist today. And so when we think about this in terms of information security and the information security industry, we have a wonderful opportunity to look at how we can do things right, how we can do things better. And we're going to need to do that because there's a lot of technology coming. So I like to explain this in the 3 phases of Spock is one way I like to talk about this. So you see the good Spock there on top, and he's representing cloud. And information is being centralized. But then there's that evil Spock, and who's evil Spock? Well, evil Spock obviously is mobility. And mobility tells us, as we heard, that smartphones, tablets, the shipments of those exceeded PCs last year, that information is being decentralized. How can those two things be happening at the same time? But they are actually happening at the same time. And then the third, which I like to use, the young Spock, that young one, which is very much like the millennials or the digital natives that are using technology natively today. And that represents the social side, the social networking. They're going to use the information wherever it is. They're going to create it wherever they want to create it. They're going to put it wherever it needs to go. And so the 3 Spocks are something we need to think about, and think about how we're going to use the cloud to secure these things in a very holistic way. So if you think about it from an enterprise perspective, what are the consequences of this? And we have not this, people talk about the hybrid clouds, but I like to talk about it a little bit further and talk about actually the hybrid enterprise. And so we have maybe private clouds, maybe we have private clouds that are co-located in a data center, maybe we're using public clouds, community clouds. Then we have, if you look down there at the bottom, we have this cloud of users enabled by mobility. And you have this broad dispersal of applications and data and users and devices. And so the key points out of this are, one, you cannot just build a data center today and say, that is my cloud, that is where things are going to be used. Because we have these users, and we have what some people have called revenge of the business units out there that actually say you have to provide the best cloud service. And so while from a security perspective, if you look at the right side of that dashed line, that vertical dashed line, and that sort of represents the traditional organizational boundary. You got your offices, you got your internal data center, you've got your internal network where things are supposed to plug in. And that's where we tend to invest our information security dollars. That's where we tend to build our architectures. Actually, to the left, you have this huge, you could call it shadow IT, or maybe on the right side, we call it the mirage IT. In fact, we have information and users traversing all over the place, and there is no way that the traditional architectures are able to actually deliver security in a holistic way in that environment. So what are some of the major trust issues and the major barriers to actually doing security in a proper way in this environment? Certainly, when we talk about using a third party, a public cloud, or some sort of a service provider, we have problems with the transparency, and that stopped a lot of places. I know it stopped certain areas in Singapore, and concerns from a financial services sector about can we trust public cloud. Maybe it's better, maybe it's not, but we don't have the appropriate level of transparency to really be able to make those decisions intelligently. Certainly, as data wants to be free, it moves all over the place, and hopefully in that previous slide I showed you that it's actually happening everywhere. The fact is, laws have not kept up with that. We have issues about how information needs to be governed within a physical border, which may not be realistic, but that's what the laws say, because the laws were often written 15 years ago, conceived even years before that. So that creates a lot of issues in how we manage this hybrid enterprise. And then if we drill down into information security specifically, we have some other issues that we really need to be thinking about. Fixed location types of systems and architectures, and it's not picking on appliances, but you buy a box, you put it in a certain place. That does create an inherent problem with the agility that we're trying to accomplish. When you think about the architecture, they tend to be fairly brittle. So when we think about we're going to have a network firewall to block different things, well, how does that work when we're collapsing things down with virtualization, and the information is traveling from one virtual machine to another, and it's all in the same box? How do you enforce the proper policies and controls and compartmentalization that you need to do? So security as a service is really what we're talking about. That is how the information security is going to be reborn. And there's virtually just about everything that we can do delivered as a service. There's very few things in the whole industry that cannot be done that way. So I expect to see the entire industry be able to be delivered in this way with a few outliers in a few short years. So we're talking about delivering it where it's needed. We're talking about doing pay-per-use. We're talking about being able to do this in a very agile perspective, being able to set up a remote office and just order the security services you need, not procure the boxes and put them into place and make sure that they connect to some proprietary network. You know, we're talking about having the ability, and this is a challenge, to actually look beyond our own company, our own enterprise, and share information about security issues, events, interesting outlying things that might be happening across different enterprises. Because it's being provided as a service, we're able to correlate a lot of this different information and find more accurate patterns, and actually find things that can predict what the next threat may be, and actually provide a lot better security. You think about trying to forecast the weather. Do you want to have one weather station that's able to collect some data, or do you want a lot of sensors out there to be able to give some more accurate picture? So what are some of the key building blocks to think about in terms of delivering security as a service? Well, like cloud computing itself, it really needs to be purpose-built for the cloud. And we need to think about this true multi-tenancy and having multiple different, even competitive clients that can be using the same service. That becomes very important. Obviously, the performance becomes very important. We need to scale things, and that's all computing utility is about, where we're creating this greater efficiency with Moore's Law and all the advances in bandwidth and a lot of other things. So when I talk more specifically about the technologies that enable this scale, identity management always comes up to me as probably the key thing that we need to have major advances. Certainly we need a lot of other areas, but we need to move beyond what our traditional thoughts of identity management is, just managing some users, but we need to have a more holistic viewpoint of that. Crypto, key management, being able to encrypt information and work with encrypted information, because data is always moving, becomes very important. Just encrypting information at rest or just using SSL to create secure pipes is not sufficient. So we need sort of a next generation thought about that. Big data and this scale and being able to find patterns out of large amounts of information in a more accurate way become tremendously important. And we need to think about how these analytics work. We need to think about scale. We need to think about multi-tenancy, and we need to think about the instrumentation of all the devices that are out there. So Cloud Security Alliance, I think we gave a little bit of an introduction here, and we made an announcement. I'll just add last week that in addition to our user certification, we actually are also announced that we will be providing a provider certification of security best practices, which we're very excited about, which will be launched next year based on our STAR program. And so we're very well aligned with the IDA CEO's statement about the importance of certification. So we support Mr. King completely on that. A lot of different things that we are delivering from user certification and compliance tools. But again, the security as a service, it's fundamental and it's based on our guidance, which is sort of a foundational document of best practices in the middle there. You can go to our research and find out all about this, but our guidance, our 150-page white paper, actually has what we think are the definitive best practices as we know them today for how we both secure the cloud and use the cloud to secure all devices that are out there. So we delivered a security as a service project, which is the first phase in us defining how do we leverage cloud computing to deliver these security services. So when you think about this in a very practical manner, think about taking your iPad, think about taking your Droid phone, you're out on the road, and you want to access corporate information. Let's say that corporate information is in two places. It's in your private network, and it's also in the public cloud. So how do you manage that? Well, this is one example where a cloud-based service could actually be the first line of defense for you, where as you're trying to access something in a public cloud provider, that device could be routed to some type of service, which actually could say, do they have the rights to do this? Who is this person? Are they using strong authentication? And what department are they in? And then be able to say, yeah, you can access that CRM system in the cloud or whatever else it might be. Only through something that's delivered through the cloud is that going to work. And you are not going to be able to take that device and route it to the corporate network through a VPN and then back out. Not efficient. It's not where things are going. So those are some of the things that we tried to define with this research project. And what we came up with are 10 categories, which are basically traditional areas of concern that we need to develop a holistic security program. But we are looking at new ways and actually how you implement this. So the first one, and again, I'm going to just reiterate how important this is, identity and access management in this very virtual world become very important ways in how we have assurance. So what I'm talking about here is going beyond identity management of users, but every device, every virtual instance of virtual machines, every data store, every application can be instrumented with perhaps some sort of a digital certificate entrusted. Every log file can have this type of information, so it's non-repudiated. That's what we need to have happen. And when you're able to do that sort of thing, you actually could provide, in, say, a Singaporean data center, you could actually provide a virtual France for that country for them to be able to know, hey, all of our information that's stored there, only we have access to it. That's the power of what we can do with an expanded view of identity management. Things like data loss prevention, which we actually find is fairly uncommon today from a lot of the cloud providers that are providing some of the traditional services to look at how is that information leaving their cloud? Is it going to the right place? These are areas where we think the security as a service providers will add a lot of value to traditional. cloud providers. I'm not going to get into all of these, but if you think about pretty much everything you do from an email security perspective, a web security perspective with proxy boxes and things like that, that there's no reason why that can't be delivered as a service. So a few of the other ones, encryption is something that's very near and dear to my heart. It's from a technology and an algorithm perspective, we know how to make things secure with encryption, but some of the interesting innovations, format preserving encryption, homomorphic encryption, are very interesting examples of where you could be operating on encrypted information in a way that even the provider would not be able to read what you're doing. We know how to do that with unstructured information, Word documents, things like that, but that only works when the information can be parked and put at rest. If you want to use it, if you want to add value, you actually need to be working on it while it's encrypted. And so that's an area where we're looking for a lot of innovation. So you can see there's a lot of other areas. We think that cloud actually provides very interesting hot site capabilities, disaster recovery. We just had a conference in Frankfurt last week where we had one of the Japanese ministries present on how cloud actually saved a lot of the IT systems after the tsunami there, and how it actually was a lot more resilient and caused them to rethink how good cloud is compared to traditional IT systems, because it was available everywhere. And maybe all the information shouldn't be in my country if my country is prone to a lot of natural disasters. Maybe that's how I protect my country. So I'm going to leave you just with a couple thoughts. And remember, I said I think half the largest technology companies in 8 short years don't exist. There's so many things out there with the power of mobile devices, and maybe we're going to see very distributed grid-like clouds. There's so much Wi-Fi growing, so much metropolitan type wireless networks that what is that going to mean to telcos in the future? Are we going to be bypassing some of that? It seems like there's a lot of ways to get from point A to point B. There's, again, so much with encryption, cloud brokering. Cloud's going to look a lot different 2 years from now. Don't kid ourselves. It's going to look a lot different. And it's not about building data centers. It's figuring out how we innovate on top of that. So this is going to take partnerships. This is going to be governments. It's going to be the private sector. It's going to be all of us working together. We just need to go do it. We need to think very virtually about the world, and we need to be agile. So with that, I'll just leave you with this. There's a lot of places you can go to find information about us. At cloudsecurityalliance.org, you'll find all of these different things, but we have places for our user certification, for overall research, for our provider certification, for getting involved with chapters. So I'd like to thank you very much.